Nice.
So I got that going. Um, cool, man. So this will be on. I just had the schedule up a second ago. This will be on YouTube, and then it'll be on the podcast feed. Like I release on Monday, so it'll be that. I think it's the last Monday of February that this will be up.
Nice. Okay.
Whatever that is, 26th or whatever that is. All right, man. So, have you listened before? Do you know the deal? It's super casual. So
Yes.
we just go back and forth from 5 to 1. If you if we have crossover, like if I mention one that you have, it's okay. You don't have to change it unless you want to. Um, you can just say, "Oh yeah, I have that too. I'll talk about it when it comes up on my list or whatever." And then at the
Yeah.
end, you can give honorable mentions, but just no more than 5. And then we'll
Mhm.
shout out the fans on social media at the very end. But that's basically it. It's pretty chill. So, do you want me to like reference anything besides NBP for you or
Yeah, next best picture and awards watch.
awards watch as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to forget to do this. Hang on. All right, so NBP awards watch. All right, cool, man. And then at the end of the episode, I'll let you plug like where they can find you on social and all that stuff too.
Awesome.
All right, brother. Just give me like 5 seconds of silence. I'll come back in. I'll do the intro, and then we will do our thing.
Sounds good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast. I'm so thrilled that you joined us again this week. Gerald here with you, of course. And as always, I have to bring in a guest host, a guest P, as it were. And I'm running through a lot of first time guests here in the beginning of 2023. I think this is like the fifth or sixth first time guest in a row, which is very exciting because, I usually have like 5 or 6 a year, but I'm just starting it out. I'm just like, you know what? Let's get all the new people in here. So this guy I've been friends with on Twitter, on social media for a few years now. And I know I've heard his voice like literally every week for the last like 2 years on Next Best Picture. He also writes for Awards Watch. He's a film critic. He's a great dude. And like I said, I just love listening to this guy, but I've never had him on the show. Dan Bayer is here. Dan, what's up, man? Welcome to the Peas.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. I'm very thrilled to have you. I'm a big fan of yours on social
Thanks,
media, but
man.
also listening to you over there with Matt. And I love your commentary on a lot of the movies you guys cover. And you always bring a little levity to the conversation over there. You always have a little bit of a lighthearted approach. You try to keep it fun, and I really
Mhm.
appreciate that about your commentary. So hopefully people look you up and look into some of your reviews over
Thanks, man. And try. This is meant to be fun.
there. Absolutely. Well, hopefully we're going to have fun tonight. We're doing
Mhm.
people on YouTube will know this, but people listening to the show might not. But we're doing a video chat tonight, and he's in the Matrix. He has the backdrop from the Matrix there, and it's freaky, man. So
There is no spoon.
hopefully this is really you. I don't know. This might be an AI program.
That's
All right.
for me to know and you to find out.
That's right. That's right. I'll have to do my investigative work. So, like I said, thanks for being here, man. And we do a top 5 show here on the main show, and we count down usually dealing with movies, which of course you're perfect for that topic. Why don't you tell everybody real quick what the top 5 is tonight and what we're counting down?
Yeah, so we are doing the top 5 Brad Pitt performances.
Brad Pitt, Mr. Pitt. That's absolutely
Mr.
right. Now,
Pitt.
what we decided, Dan, we should tell everyone is we're not going to do movies necessarily.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about your research at the top here, but we're not going to do movies that Brad Pitt was in. We're going to kind of rank our favorite performances of Mr. Pitt,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
I got worried when I was making my list because I was like, these are just my favorites. So I was like trying to I was trying to remember like his performance, regardless of maybe what I thought of the movie as a whole.
Yeah.
But without giving any titles away up front here, how was your research in coming up with this? I actually gave you
You did.
Brad Pitt or Leo, which
Mhm.
if you want to come back in the future, we can do Leo because I haven't done his
Totally.
films yet either. But when you were doing your research, why did you pick Brad Pitt? How easy was it for you to narrow this list down, and what was it like for you?
I mean, between the two, like, I feel like Brad Pitt just has this wide range of not just genres of films, but quality of
Mhm.
films.
Sure.
He has allowed himself to be in some absolute crap, and Leo is a bit too much on the quality control, if you ask me. He's just always like, "It shall be an Oscar contender,"
Right, right.
and it's that's fine. He's a fantastic actor, but looking at what Brad Pitt has done throughout his career, I think is far more interesting, and it's
Yeah,
been especially like going through and looking back and reminding myself of some films and like watching a couple that I hadn't watched. It's really weird, like watching him try to figure out what his like persona is
right.
and like what is his his movie star thing, because he was clearly a movie star from like the first time he was on
Yeah.
screen. Basically,
Mhm,
the charisma is just out of this world.
mhm.
um but it took him like he went through a lot of different phases trying to find, you know,
Yeah.
quote unquote who Brad Pitt is,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, I was a big
And
fan of I know I heard your mixed reactions to it when you guys covered it on NBP, but I was a big fan of him in Babylon this past year, and I think that kinda speaks to a little bit what you're saying because his character in that movie is kind of in the twilight of his career. He kinda
Mhm.
realizes, like, how much longer am I gonna be able to do this, which I thought was a really cool storyline that was kinda built into the overall well, there were a lot of different storylines in Babylon, but you know what I mean. His
Yeah.
storyline specifically kind of mirrored in a lot of ways what I feel like maybe he's actually kind of thinking a little bit as he gets a little bit older into his career.
Mhm.
And then you start out with some of those young hunk roles that he had, which are great. And they're great to go back and watch, and the rewatchability is super high on them. But I guess what I'm saying is you can just see this really cool kind of trajectory and like, I don't want to use the word like awards worthy, but I mean, just like more people kind of taking notice of his performance as opposed to his looks or
Yeah.
whatever the draw was prior to like 10 or 15 years ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The people have been asking him more recently to do Brad Pitt dramatic actor,
Hmm.
or at least, like deep character actor,
Right.
than they were before. And I think that is great because he is really incredible at creating characters from the
He
ground
is, yeah.
up.
Yeah, I mean, the drama stuff's great, but he's funny too, man. It's a funny dude.
It's
I mean,
really funny, dude.
it, he's and he's so charismatic. I mean, when he was on the award circuit a couple years ago and he was making those speeches, I mean,
Mhm.
they were just timeless, man. I mean, so
Yeah.
charming and so funny and just a dude that, you feel like you'd want to hang out with for an hour and just have a couple beers with. I mean, I don't know, but I would imagine he's just fun to be around and entertaining
Yeah.
guy. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. I just go ahead and tell you, he's probably my top 5 actors of all time. I love the dude's
Oh, wow.
catalog. So I was thrilled when you picked this topic for sure because it's an actor that I've been wanting to cover for a long time on the show and never had a chance to do it. So here we are, Dan Bayer, first time
Nice.
guest,
Hello.
Mr. Brad Pitt, and we both kept our shirts on for the recording because we didn't want to do
I
the full Brad Pitt
look, when you're talking about Brad Pitt, I just feel
oiled up,
like I can't compete with that.
Yeah, you're right. We
It's
don't.
just
We're good.
it's not worth it. No one
You're
no one wants
you're
to
right.
see that.
Absolutely. Let's just leave Brad Pitt to their imagination
Yes.
here tonight. All right, so we're going to do our top 5 Brad Pitt movie performances. I didn't do any television. Dan, you didn't do TV, right? You just
No,
did
I did
movies.
not. Yeah.
All right, yeah. He's got a few in there, like TV stuff that, again, the
Yeah.
humor, it was funny.
Mhm.
But I left TV off the table, so it's all movies tonight. Our top 5 Brad Pitt performances. Dan, I'm going to let you get us started, man. So give me your number 5 Pitt performance and why.
My number 5 Pitt performance is actually one that I think I may be undervaluing it a bit, but I
Mm,
think it is a perfect merger of like the character that they're playing and his persona. Especially at the time. It's Moneyball.
mm, good
It
one.
really sort of uses that like uh good old boy, former like golden boy jock, kind of aura that he has, and especially had at that time in 2011. And he's remarkably understated, but
Mhm.
he gives you so much with just, just his eyes.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's a real like movie star performance,
Yeah.
but it's not that he's like relying on his charisma necessarily. There's a lot of really smart craft behind it, and when he can dial it back and how much he can dial it back while still maintaining interest.
Yeah, and Moneyball is one of the very few. I mean, unless I'm just kind of forgetting some, but it's one of the very few based on real life character, based on a real
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
He doesn't do that a lot in his career. Kind of to your
Nope.
point, we were talking about in the intro. He loves to kind of create these characters and make them his own and the staple of how he portrays them based on the screenplay or whatever. But in this case, he's portraying a real guy. Nominated for this, right? I think he was
Yeah,
nominated, but
nominated for lead
didn't.
actor. Yeah,
Yeah, nominated for Lee, which I think was deserving, and it's on my list too.
absolutely.
It's on my list too, so I'll save a
Ooh.
little bit. But
Okay.
I love Moneyball, and I think it's a great pick. So that's your number 5. Now
Yep.
you were saying you might be undervaluing it a little bit. I might be
Yeah.
undervaluing my number 5 because this is what he won the Oscar for, and it's for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's my number 5, playing Cliff Booth, the stuntman. I
Nice.
mean, charm, charisma, badassery, a great wingman, a great friend. Again, he kind of encapsulates who Brad Pitt probably would have been in 1969. Just such a cool
Oh,
guy that you
yeah.
want to hang out with on a movie set, and he kind of brings that to life in this movie and just so cool. I mean, him and Leo, I mean, in this movie are just a great tag team.
Yeah.
The final scene of this movie is actually what brought the movie up for me, like the last act of the film. Prior to that, I was kind of like middling on it, but
Interesting.
yeah, but the last act of this film really brought this movie to life for me, where I walked away going, "Wow, I fucking love that. I want to see it again." And a lot of that had to do with Brad Pitt and his dog and the whole fucking thing that we get there. So
That is so interesting because the exact opposite happened to me.
really, okay,
I
so
was, like,
you were.
really high on it, and then the end just kind of killed it. Like, even though, like,
I've heard both.
I enjoyed it, I had a lot of fun with that last act. I thought like, technically, it was really great and fun filmmaking,
Mhm.
but I just that it kind of lost me on a thematic level.
No, I
Um
get it. I've heard both. I've heard that take on it.
Yeah,
I've heard people
so
that
have
just didn't
I.
like it at all, which
Yeah,
I don't think it's Tarantino's best. It's probably like middle of the pack in my opinion, but
yeah.
I mean, I think Brad Pitt's stellar in it, and I think it's a great
Mhm.
performance. I think it was,
Yeah.
I mean, you're deeper into award season than I am, Dan, but I think it may have been like a resume win, kind of like it was kind of like, all right, we got to give him his due here, because I don't think it
It
was
was
his
a little
best.
bit.
Yeah,
It was a little bit it felt like, the coronation, like, this is finally like, you've had a couple nominations before. This is, clearly your best work, and you're basically playing yourself, so it's, like,
right.
it was the perfect moment to, sort of crown him and say, "Thanks to your long career," and it's for a great performance too,
Sure.
like, you can't really complain about it because it is one of the quintessential Brad Pitt performances.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't mean to. I don't take anything away from his win because I was pulling for him that year. I predicted him that year. I'm glad he
Mhm.
won it. Um, I would have loved to have seen him got nominated for Babylon this year, but that's a different story. All right, so I
Yeah,
don't want any
same.
Babylon haters coming at me. Okay. All right, so that's my number 5. We're back over to you, man. What do you got at number 4?
Well, it's funny you should say that. Um, I cheated a little,
Okay.
and have a tie at number 4.
All right. I love when guests cheat immediately when they come on the show. Nicole
One
Ackman. Nicole Ackman came on a couple weeks ago, and she immediately, with her number 5, cheated. She was
Yep,
like,
she
she
told
named
me.
2 people. Go ahead.
So it and I'm doing this because I feel like these performances are sort of opposite sides of the same coin.
hmm
One is Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the other is in Babylon.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
I
Um,
They
yeah.
are
So,
both,
okay, go ahead.
people in Hollywood, it's sort of the twilight of their careers.
Yeah.
Cliff was not a like star, but he was in that atmosphere.
Hmm.
Um, and I just think that like Cliff is such a more like it's a more uh comedic take on the character, whereas it's Jack, right, in Babylon?
Jack. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is Jack in Babylon. Is the more sort of like it's the sadder, more depressing, dramatic version
Hmm.
of a similar character. And I love that
Sure.
they're like practically back to back on his resume. They really feel like, we're getting the two of them together. You feel like you're getting the full picture of who Brad Pitt is as a
Okay.
performer. And they're really each stylized in their own way. The He is one of the best performers of Quentin Tarantino's dialogue that I
Hmm.
think are currently working. Um, and he
Yeah.
just like chomps through it in Once Upon a Time. I love watching him, especially in the scene, the extended sequence at Spawn Movie Ranch. It is so much fun to just watch his gears turn,
Yeah.
and it's brilliant. And then you have what he's doing in Babylon, where the and Babylon is a movie that I really remember more for like individual scenes or moments that I really,
Yeah. Oh
really
yeah.
loved, as opposed to
Hmm.
like the whole of everything. And there are several moments of his in the last half of Babylon that are just like soul crushing
Yeah.
in how much he's giving you with his face. And he's
Right.
like, it's kind of like the same thing in Moneyball. Like he does not lean into how overly expressive his face can be, but
Hmm.
he's finding that perfect line between um not enough and just enough.
Right. Well, it's I've been given shit from some people I know personally. I am a Babylon apologist. It was one of my favorite. It was actually my number two film of 2022. It was my runner up. I
Nice.
love that movie. Brad Pitt has a lot to do with it. It didn't crack my top five, but I'm so glad that it made yours because I didn't expect that. Also, I really, really appreciate you cheating right out of the gate. It's awesome. Top six. Here we go.
I was just like, I got to a certain point and I was like, I don't want to lose any of these. I can't do
Yeah, yeah.
it.
No, I get it. It's tough. Week in and week out is so tough for me. But great picks. Obviously, I agree with both of them. And I didn't think about that before, where it's like kind of the same character in different settings.
Mhm.
So I really like that you kind of pointed that out to me a little bit too, because I already mentioned how I feel like his character in Babylon is kind of like possibly mirroring what he might be going through in his own life. Same
A little
age,
bit,
same
yeah.
path of his career. He's not dealing with any major changes, if you will, in the industry, but it's just kind of like you get to a point where I mean, you start doing different things because of your age or because new people are coming in. I mean, it just is the way it is. So I think he does great. He handles it with grace, and I agree with you, man. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Jack Conrad, by the way, is the
Mhm.
name of the character there in Babylon. So we're getting a little crossover heavy here, but that's fine because my number four is Billy Bean from Moneyball.
Nice.
So I agree with you. Everything you said, I agree with. Moneyball was interesting to me as a film because I remember it was one of my favorite films of that year. Him and Jonah Hill, Philip Seymour Hoffman, a lot of great performances in that movie. But I just remember being kind of like taken aback that this movie was able to make like mathematics so like fascinating, where you're just like, my God, this is so like suspenseful and intense. And it's like, they're literally just
Yes.
doing statistics the whole time. So, there was a lot of underlying stuff going on there with his marriage and, other stuff going on that was playing out as well. But I just
Mhm.
remember being like kind of surprised that I was as engrossed in it as I was. So I think that's a testament to his performance and a lot of the other ones I mentioned too, that
Mhm.
they were able to just kind of rope you in and you really are kind of drawn to these characters, and you kind of want to see how it plays out. And I'm glad that he got nominated that year, and I think it's deserving. So I agree with everything you said, but that's my number 4, Billy Bean from Moneyball.
Nice.
All right, man. So let's see. I don't know. I've been listening to you for a few years. You might, I think we might have more crossover. I'm looking at my 3 that I have left here. I don't know. We'll see. You're a dramatic dude. I don't know. We'll see what you come up with. Mine are, the ones I have left aren't too dramatic, but we'll see. What do you got at number 3, Dan?
I at number 3, I have the performance that inspired one of my favorite awards acceptance speeches of all time, in which he thanked the makers of Kaopectate at the Golden Globe Awards. It's in Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys.
Nice, man.
I think he is just like demented,
Yeah.
bonker balls brilliant in
Yeah.
that movie. It's so easy to play crazy, but the way that he is able to do it in this movie it feels unique and different and special. And it was the first performance I think where anyone really saw Brad Pitt and go, "Oh, this guy can act." And I just remember seeing the fervor around him in this movie, and then eventually seeing the movie and going like, "Yeah, he really can act. He's fucking great."
Yeah, no, it was a out of the box, memorable, like holy shit performance. Madeline Stowe was great in this too. It was like the lead.
Loved, yeah.
Freaking loved her in this. Terry Gilliam, who also did Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, so kind of that like hypnotic, weird kind of camera work and stuff, which really played to his character too, to Brad Pitt's character.
Yeah.
This one's in my honorable mentions, but I think it's because I haven't seen it in several years.
A long time, yeah.
Yeah, I need to give it a rewatch, but I think that this one and maybe one other one that I'm thinking about right now that I don't want to mention in case it comes up are possibly his most like, whoa, dude, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing here? Performances, you know what I mean? Just so weird from anything else that he's done. There's one other one that I'm going to mention here in a little bit if it doesn't come up, but other than that, I think it kind of stands on its own, is what I mean. In 12 Monkeys, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
It's kind of like a one-off in his catalog for sure. So, great pick, man. So that's your number 3.
Yep.
And here's the other one that I was talking about. So my number 3 is, I love when he gets with these certain filmmakers. We already talked about Tarantino, but David Fincher and him in Fight Club as Tyler Durden is my number 3. This is it's one of my favorite movies ever. I love this movie. I love how trippy it is. I love how like bleak and kind of dark it is, and like it's like a plot twist, but it's like a mind fuck plot twist where you have to kind of like sit there afterwards and like, what? Wait, what just happened? Who was that? Who is he? What did he do? And you just kind of like have to kind of like talk through it, and it's really awesome in that way. And I just love Brad Pitt's kind of like stylized, like just hypnotic performance where he's just like, just dancing out in the parking lot, and he's down there shirtless, bloody and sweaty, and
my god,
letting people kick his ass, and like, I mean, it's just so memorable, man. Like I said, with 12
the
Monkeys,
most iconic fashion of his career.
Yeah, with the red leather jacket and all that.
Oh, the clothes! Oh my god.
Yeah, so good, man. What do you think? So, are you a fan of this one? Is this one on your list?
Maybe.
All right. Well, you could hold it then, but I'm a fan of this one. So
yeah,
I don't think it's my
yeah.
I don't think it's my favorite Fincher, but it is probably in the top 5. It's there's one other one that is really special to me as a movie lover that I'm going to talk about actually here in a minute because Brad Pitt's in that one as well. But Fight Club's up there. I mean, it's one that you won't forget. It's also one that kind of demands a rewatch. You have to go, I got to watch that again. I got to see what just happened. And it's like you catch different stuff on second and third viewings and so on. So every time I see it, even today, whether it's playing on TBS or whatever, I'm like, oh shit, I don't remember that, or
Yeah.
oh yeah, I forgot that. And you catch stuff kind of going along there as you rewatch it. So that's my number three, and we are over to you for number two, buddy. What do you got at number two?
My number two is just another. I He is such a great comedian,
Hmm.
and it feels like he hasn't gotten enough great comedic roles in his career to really
It's true.
make that case. But I can't help but laugh whenever I even think about him for even a split second in the Coen Brothers Burn After Reading.
Oh yeah, that's so good. That's so good, man.
Just like
I agree.
every every little moment is like pure comedy gold. The look, the I it like all credit to the costumers and the hair and makeup people because the tan and the streaked hair, it's beautiful, it's perfect. But then like how he changes his voice like just so slightly,
Hmm.
upping the himbo, and like it I just like, "We have your shit." Like,
It's too good, man. It really is. Yeah.
and his the last, like, split second of his screen time in this movie is the funniest thing. I like, it takes, like that moment could it's probably always gonna work fine on its own, but with the right performer, it can just transcend to, like, another level of effectiveness, and he absolutely does that with that one little facial expression that he's giving at the end there, and, I ah,
Yeah.
it's just comic genius, and I
Yeah.
love it.
So good, man. It's so good. It didn't make my top five, but I love it so much. That the meme of him with the dancing with the Walkman. Perfect. Perfect, man.
It's so good.
So memorable, so great. And and he got to stretch his comic, chops too, which is
Yes.
awesome. Like you said, he just doesn't really
Mhm.
get to do that very often. So
Yeah.
I got one in my honorable mentions that he was hilarious in. But generally speaking, looking at his IMDb today when I was making my,
Yeah.
finalizing my list, like it just doesn't do a lot of comedy. So,
Yeah.
but there you go. Burn After Reading, great pick. That's your runner up. That's your number two.
Yep.
My number two is one of the movies. There's a handful. Pulp Fiction would also be one. And this is definitely one. There's like three or four movies that are like, all right, I'm going to the theater. I am now a movie goer. I go see movies in
Mhm.
the theater ever since then
Uh-huh.
because of movies like Pulp Fiction and like Seven in 1995 from David Fincher.
Yes.
Brad Pitt, man, as David Mills, one of the two lead detectives in this, opposite Morgan Freeman, who also puts in a stellar performance here. I mean,
Mhm.
just such a dark, gloomy, gritty serial killer, like David Fincher, like to a T, everything we think of him today.
Mhm.
This is really where it started. You could talk about Mindhunter, Zodiac, like you could mention the killer that's coming out this year. I mean, you could
Yeah.
mention any of this shit, and it
Oh.
all is going to trace back to Seven.
Mhm.
But I went to see this. There was a little movie house where I was living at the time in a town in called Greensboro, where it played at the Janus Movie House. And we were like, all right, let's go see it. And me and my friend Bob, I went to see this in that same theater like five times because I
Oh
was
my
so
god.
I was so blown away by the movie making, like the craft aspect, like the opening credits
Yeah.
with Nine Inch Nails,
Oh my
and
god. Yes.
the credits going backwards with David Bowie at the end, and like uh, I already mentioned like just kind of that gloomy, dark, like almost like green hues, like kind of filmmaking, and I just was so drawn to it, and a lot of it had to do with Pitt's performance and how he just kind of seemed like this novice who was kind of like fumbling through learning his job, but at the same time solving one of the, most like perplexing crimes that the
Yeah.
city had ever seen. And it was like twists and turns around every victim. And, you could see like in his character, David Mills, you could see like his kind of disgust with what he was having to investigate, but trying to detach himself from that And Morgan Freeman, as the elder detective, was able to do that. He was able to say, "This is just my job. Like, I can't let it get to me." And he was trying to mentor Pitt throughout the movie, and I love their kind of dynamic. I'm a I'm an apologist for Gwyneth Paltrow too. Like, I love her. I don't care. I mean, I'll tell you right now, she's great.
Everyone in this movie is great.
Oh, so good, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of this one? Is it on your list, or do you want to
It,
have anything to
it,
say about it?
it is one of my honorable mentions. I think it's definitely one of his best dramatic performances. Really underrated at the time, I think, performance by him. Um, and he has that grit,
Hmm.
somehow, like, even though he's this really pretty California surfer boy looking kind of dude,
Hmm.
he has like just that I don't know what it fucking is about that stubble, but like
You're
it
right.
just automatically grits him up. It gives him this
Yeah.
like hard bitten look to him that
Hmm.
completely changes it. And I love his vibe in this movie. He's so good that the final scene
Hmm.
when he sees what's in that box,
Hmm.
dude,
Yeah, the
like
emotion, man.
you don't even need to know what's in the
Right.
box to know.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, it's
His
so
performance tells
it's
you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, is really, really great performance, yeah.
And to your point too, I mean that ending scene, of course, but even I mean just throughout the movie as they're investigating the killer, like he's such an emotional attachment to the case, and it comes out in his character where you have Morgan Freeman, who's this really kind of like quiet, like poised, detective, and they're
Mhm.
reacting in two different ways, and they play off each other so well. Like the scene when Spacey, sorry, I had to mention his, he who should not be named. Uh, Hopefully, my editor can take out the Spacey part. But when he walks in, with the bloody hands to basically turn himself in,
Yeah.
and Freeman and Pitt are there, and you see Pitt's reaction, like, "Hey, hey, get on your fucking knees," and Morgan Freeman's just kind of like, it's just you kind of see the different emotionality that goes into the
Mhm.
characters, and I think Pitt made that choice to be that kind of like gung ho, like newcomer that really wanted to solve the case, and you kind of see that come out in the performance. So it's one of my favorite films of all time because it really turned me into a cinephile. I feel like this one and a couple others were responsible for doing that. I graduated high school in '94. This came out in '95. I was in college, and like I said, this theater was really close to the campus I was at the time, and I saw so many great movies there, and this is one that stands out to me. So, Detective David Mills, Brad Pitt's performance from
Yeah.
Seven, is my runner up. And we're up to our number ones, man. You had Moneyball. You had a cheat at number 4, but that's fine. I don't care. We're friends. Once Upon a Time in Babylon. Then you had 12 Monkeys, Burn After Reading. What is your number one performance of Brad Pitt's, buddy?
My number 1 is Fight Club.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was wondering.
I it is, I think, the most iconic performance he's ever given. Tyler Durden lives on in infamy and will for all eternity because of how incredibly well he captures him, how incredibly well he portrays him. He has that it is perfectly utilizing every single one of his strengths as an actor. Have the charisma, which just immediately draws you to him. He has that kind of laid back, kind of rakish energy to him that again that just like draws you in. But then the words that he's saying are so snake like, how they wheedle their way into your brain and twist
Mm-hmm.
you around because he's using all that charisma and good natured qualities to for
Mm-hmm.
something evil. And
Right.
it's just like I love the physicality of the performance, and it's like and it's not just that I like looking at those greased up abs, like
That's not bad though. It's not
it's a
bad.
it's a look,
It
you
helps.
know? Definitely helps, but the physicality of the performance, how he is constantly standing in like a ready stance for a fight,
Yeah.
how, like the way he like holds on to people and things. It is so much more difficult of a performance than it looks like. And I think that's a thing throughout his career. Like he makes this all look very easy, and
Hmm.
it is not. As we can
Right.
see from some of his worst films, like the charisma won't always get you through everything, but when you have good material like
Right.
this,
Yeah, for sure.
out of this world.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just so iconic too. I mean, this is, one of his
Mhm.
more iconic roles, if not his most iconic. I mean, it's just kind of like what you said with the look and everything, and just so like impactful in pop culture, and like people just go back to it time and again. I mean, I love it. It's on my in my top 5 too, so we match up there. So Tyler Durden from Fight Club is your number 1.
Yeah.
My number 1 has not been mentioned yet, which is a bit surprising, but
Oh.
I kind of realized, Dan, that this is a great performance, and I think you're going to like it too, or at least I hope you do. But I feel like he was able to incorporate a little bit of that comedy that we were talking about.
Mhm.
But I get the impression from this role that the filmmaker was just like, do whatever the hell you want. Like, this is what I wrote on paper,
Uh-huh.
but I want you to create this character, and I want you to be the one that
Oh god.
gives the audience what it is.
Mhm.
A lot of comedy in there. And
Mhm.
I freaking love what he did with Lieutenant Aldo Rain from Inglorious Bastards.
I was not expecting that to be your number
The
1.
Apache, man.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
So we get
Okay.
the charm that we've been talking about. So we get that Brad Pitt kind of
Yes.
charm, but we
Mhm.
also get the menace because you're kind of scared of him. You kind of hear tales of what he's done in this group that he's leading and scalping people and the whole thing. It's a little scary. You're a little intimidated, but he's so funny and alluring. Bongiorno. When he's at the movie house, and the whole
He
scene
makes
with
getting scalped sound like a nice afternoon
yeah,
fun,
yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah. And the whole scene with the in the cave when they bring the Nazi out and he's giving him the whole thing, like, look, dude, like, I'm
it's
gonna have to bring
good.
out this guy. It's just the
Wow.
way he's just kind of laying it out there for him. And he gets on a first name basis with the guy. And I know that Tarantino wrote it, and a lot of that goes to the beautifully written dialogue in the movie. But Brad Pitt, like I said, I feel like he just kind of made this character his own. And Tarantino was like, here it is, man. Just do whatever you want. And it was this really outlandish, in my opinion, hilarious, memorable performance of the guy that's going to go down with the ship. He's there to take care of business. He's there to, kill Nazis, uh, as he says. The scene in the underground bar with Fassbender and all that shit. I mean,
Oh,
just fucking too perfect, man. It's too good.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
So I love this movie. It's a hot take, perhaps, because I've gotten a couple eyebrows raised when I've said this, but this is my favorite Tarantino film.
It is in my top. It's in the top 3 or top 5 depending on the day.
Okay, yeah,
I love Inglorious Bastards. I think that Pitt is I think everyone in it is great. But he's definitely one of the like standout performances, and that sort of like kicked off this last stage of his career,
hmm
and I love it. Not all the roles have had dialogue that good, but like when he gets that really great dialogue, he just sinks his teeth into it.
Yeah, he
Ugh,
really does.
it's
Yeah,
fucking great.
and you
Yeah.
didn't see that coming, huh? You didn't know I was going to pick that.
No, no. I did. This was one of my honorable mentions. So like I love it too, and I'm so glad that it's on your list. I was not expecting it to be your number 1 though. That's really
Yeah, there you go.
cool.
Yeah, super memorable performance and just so funny too. I mean, because it's not a funny movie really,
Yeah.
but he is able to just kind of like make you laugh during
Mhm.
all these really kind of horrific, scenery that's going on around him in
Yeah.
this movie. And
Oh my god,
I
and the
mean, there's
standoff
some
between him and Christoph Waltz is
so good,
fan freaking tastic.
so good. And Tarantino throws in, "This is my masterpiece" at the end, and
That's brilliant. I love it. I love it.
so good, man. So there you go. So Lieutenant Aldo Rain, the Apaches, my number one from Inglorious Bastards. Dan, I'll tell you what, man, we're going to take a quick break. I think you know this, but guys, just everybody listening, just so you know, my movie awards are coming up. The Golden Peas, where I honor the year in film 2022. The award ceremony is on March 13th, and voting is open. So make sure you cast your ballot. I'm going to run a quick promo for that. I want to get as many votes as possible, and then we're going to announce the winners on March 13th. So let's run a quick promo for that. Then when we come back, we will wrap up our top fives, Dan, and we will shout out the fans online. And we also have some honorable mentions that we're going to run through here. So we'll be back in just a minute, guys. Everybody sit tight. All right, man. You good over there?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right, brother. Give me like 5 seconds. I'll come back in, and then we will wrap up.
Cool beans.
Welcome back, guys. Dan Bayer is here. As I like to call him, Dancing Dan on film. That's what I call him whenever I talk to him. We just had our top 5 Brad Pitt performances discussion, and it was a great one. Had a little bit of crossover, but some not crossover too, which is cool. We had some an eclectic list of films there for you guys to seek out if you haven't seen them yet. Real quick, Dan, remind everybody what your 5 was again. Just list them 5 to 1 more time.
Yeah, my number 5 was Moneyball. His performance is Billy Bean. My number 4 was my cheating sort of tie between Jack Conrad and Babylon and Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. My number 3 was 12 Monkeys. That's Jeffrey Goins. Number 2, Chad Feldheimer and the Coen brothers Burn After Reading. And number 1, the iconic Tyler Durden in Fight Club.
Nice list, man. My number 5 was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's Cliff Booth. My number 4 was Billy Bean from Moneyball. My number 3 was Tyler Durden from Fight Club. My number 2 was Detective David Mills from Seven. And my number 1 was Aldo Rain from Inglorious Bastards. So there you go. Dan, you got some honorable mentions over there. So what didn't crack your top 5 quite, but you want to shout them out?
So from your list, both Seven and Inglorious Bastards, those are my like 7th and 8th on my, if I was ranking a top 10. My number 6, and I really almost had this at 5. It's The Tree of Life.
Oh, okay.
And I just like, I don't know what to do with Malick movies in list of people's best performances, because like I feel like whatever the performance is, like it's not even a 10th of the performance that they were giving. So like I feel like weird, but there is some, I don't think anyone ever knew that he could do like naturalism like that.
Right.
It's phenomenal. I think anyone who can be in a Terrence Malick movie and make it into the final edit like knows what they're doing. And like there is something so potent about the use of silence in that movie, particularly with his character, and I think it's definitely one of his best performances. There's a large part of me that thinks he should have won the Oscar that year, and
yeah, he's great. He's great, and I've got a weird relationship with Malick too. I never walk away from his films like loving them, but I appreciate them in most cases. And Brad Pitt's performance in this movie is definitely one of the things I take away from the film as my favorite part of it. Really, I mean, the imagery is always stellar with Malick, but the story is just kind of like you don't know what you're watching in a lot of cases. You know what I mean? So I never really know how to feel about that. But yeah, it always looks beautiful, and the performances are usually pretty good. So
yeah,
so I agree with you. Was that it for honorables for you?
No, I also gotta shout out Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
just like impossibly cool.
Yeah,
I
agree.
You can't touch him. You can't touch him in this. And just the line readings are fantastic. It's like a not PC line right now, but when they're in the when they're watching the acrobats, he's like, which one is the amazing yet? The little Asian dude. It's
It's good. It's good, man. Yeah. I mean,
it's
you had such a perfect no, it's okay. I think it's funny
the
too. You had
vibe
such
is just like immaculate. I
I think it's so perfect too because you had like him, Clooney, Soderbergh. Like it was just like
yeah,
it was so cool. Yeah, it was so
it's
cool.
so cool. It was so
I
cool.
agree. I
The
love the
look on
sequels
his
too.
the sequels are good too. They're not quite as good, but they're still fun. I
Mhm.
The look on his face when they've almost gotten the whole gang together, and Clooney's like, you think we need one more?" He doesn't say anything.
Yeah,
We need one more."
we need
The
one more.
look on his face is just perfect.
Yeah,
And the scene when he's trying to teach the Hollywood people how to play poker.
yeah. In the beginning, yeah, that's great.
Hilarious.
That's so good, man. And
Hilarious
I love
how he
how he's
deals with
always
them.
eating too throughout
Yeah,
the series.
it's so freaking good.
He's always
Yeah,
eating.
yeah, love
Yeah, it's good,
him.
man.
Love him in that one, and of course, Thelma and Louise,
Yeah,
which is
dude.
like
Come on.
actually not his film debut, but everyone like thinks it is. But like Jesus, like
Hmm.
d-
A Star is Born, man.
literally
Right there.
watching someone become a star right in front of
Yeah,
you,
exactly. Yep.
and he is gorgeous.
Yep. I agree, man.
Charisma burning a hole through the freaking screen,
Yep.
and that charm, man. You're right there with her, and, like, when that turn comes, it's just like, "Oh, no." Like, I
Yeah, I
was
know.
rooting for you, man.
I know. I
Ah,
know.
you can't look away from him from a single second he's on the screen, and that is, like, pure star power.
Yeah, so good, man. I agree with you.
Mhm.
All right, man. So some good picks there. So my number 6 would have been Babylon. I am I, I'm in love with this movie. Like I love it so much. I heard a lot of the takes on NBP, and I've heard different people kind of like up and down on it. I know it just came out on streaming, but I've always loved this movie. One of my favorite films of the year. Brad Pitt has a lot to do with that.
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily. I don't really know how I feel about how they did his character in the end and his kind of ending, if you will. I don't know. I mean, at the
Yeah.
time I wasn't really bothered by it, but then I kind of thought about it a little bit more afterwards. So I
Hmm.
would have liked to have seen a little bit better of an ending for his character in that respect. But nevertheless, I mean, I've already told you I feel like it kind of mirrors his own career, and he just really gave a personal performance in this movie, despite all the
Mhm.
batshit crazy stuff going on around him. He was able to
Yes.
kind of um, how about so this is one that we haven't mentioned yet, but how about the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford?
Yep, that would have
Uh,
been my, like, number 10 if we were
yeah,
ranking them. Yeah.
yeah. So that's my number 7. I mean, I thought he did such a great job in that, and he's a sympathetic character, but again, you're kind of scared of him a little bit, so he kind of plays both sides of that beautifully. I thought.
Mhm.
You mentioned my number 8, which would have been 12 Monkeys. And then you didn't mention my number 9 or 10. My number 9 would have been a movie that I came to early, which was also in that same time period, around 7. This actually came out the year before that, but it's a movie called Legends of the Fall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude,
I
where he's
have not thought about that movie in years.
dude, his name's Tristan in this movie.
I know.
And I tried to get my wife to name our son Tristan, which would have been after his character in this movie, but we ended up going with Logan.
Okay.
She wouldn't go with Tristan, but
Ah,
I don't. It's just such. It just stuck with me. It was around that same time that I was
mhm.
telling you about, where it was like Pulp Fiction 7, like all these movies in
Yeah.
94, 95, and it was one of those movies I saw. Anthony Hopkins plays his father in this
Mhm.
movie. Um, Julia Ormond, I had a crush on her for many years after seeing her in this
She's
film.
beautiful.
But it's a great like family
Yeah.
drama, kind of set in the early colonial period, and it's just it's a beautiful film. So if you haven't seen it and you like Brad Pitt, you should check it out. And then my number 10 is kind of silly, but I fucking love him. It's literally a cameo, Dan. So don't get mad at me. I'm kind of cheating on my own show.
Oh, come on.
But True Romance.
Okay, okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know
So,
what you're talking about. That's better than the one that I was thinking
what do you think I
of.
was doing? What do you think I
I
was
was
doing?
thinking of Deadpool. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, sure, he's funny in it, but really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, as the stoner dude in True
Yeah.
Romance. With the fucking hitman come over to the house, and he's just like literally doesn't care. He's stoned on the couch eating cereal. It's like the best.
It's
And we were just talking about comedy, and
absolute.
it's
It is
perfect.
Cliff Booth in his 20s or like late teens.
That's right,
Absolutely,
dude.
it's perfect.
Absolutely, man. So I love that one. I've always been a huge fan of that performance in that movie. So Tony
Oh
Scott
my
directed film and written by Tarantino.
yeah.
So early Tarantino dialogue that Brad Pitt was involved in there. All right, Dan Bayer, how I like to end every episode is head over to social media and see what the fans had to say on the topics. So, guys, if you have not joined up yet, please check the show notes and join up to the Facebook fan community because that is where I try to interact with my fans the most. And I just said over there, I said, what are your favorite Brad Pitt movie performances in the old suggestion box? Let's see what we got over there. Lindsay Dunn, friend of mine, says 12 Monkeys and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There you go.
Oh yeah.
Good picks. Let's see. Jared Taylor, patron and friend of the show, says Seven and Fight Club. Yeah, those are two powerhouses right there for sure.
Fincher baby.
Fincher. Josh Ragland says there's so many, but he's going to say Seven and Fight Club. He's also going to say Burn After Reading, The Assassination of Jesse James, and California. How about that one?
Oh nice.
Yeah, that's good.
That's another one that I haven't seen in years.
That was remind me, I haven't either. Was that Keanu was in that too, right? Or no? Was that a different one? Yeah. I
Yes.
think
I think it was
Juliette
Keanu.
Lewis. I don't know. All these names are coming to mind. I don't know if that's the right
I,
movie. I haven't seen it
like you're
forever.
thinking of like all the '90s indie movies, and like
You're like,
I
no, that was Natural Born Killers. What are you talking about?
no, but it was
Let's see.
Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis, and hold on, I got it. I'm
Go for it.
looking.
Research on the
I
show.
have the
Google it.
IMDb up. Oh no, David Duchovny is who it
David
was.
Duchovny. What am I thinking of Keanu
Yes.
Reeves? Oh, I'm thinking of Feeling Minnesota, I think,
Yeah.
which was Keanu, I think. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for the shout out. I haven't seen California, obviously, in too long. I need to check it out again. Marshall, friend of the show, says Benjamin Button. We didn't mention that one. Another Fincher.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie I was kind of lukewarm on, especially from David Fincher. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I do remember Brad Pitt really turned in something special there, I feel like.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I have trouble with him in certain scenes of the movie, and in other scenes, I think he's really great.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it, he had to do a lot working with the prosthetics and
Hmm.
all that. It's sometimes hard to tell like what part of the performance is him versus what is
Hmm.
not.
Hmm.
But there are, especially the scenes later in the film when he gets middle aged and younger looking,
Hmm.
are pretty great stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Marshall also says Ocean's 11, Bullet Train, and Once Upon a Time.
He has a lot
Were
of
you a
fun
fan
in
of?
Bullet Train.
Yeah, it's good, right? It's
Yeah.
there's a lot of really fun, like easygoing performances in that movie. Like you don't have to overthink them. Like they're
Mhm.
just having a blast. I was a fan of that movie last year. I don't care what anybody says.
I
Uh,
I had fun with it too.
my friend Brad. So I think you were giving me shit on this a second ago because you thought it was mine, but he says Deadpool 2. I said, bro, you're always coming through for me time and again.
It's like, that it's a genius bit of casting, and I love that he did it. But
That's true.
like, come on,
It's not really a stellar performance per se.
it's not
Let's
a
see.
performance.
It's not even a performance, even. Yeah. Doesn't fit the brief, Brad. Let's see. Julio says shares a gift from 12 Monkeys, and we both agree there.
Yeah,
Jason, the Nerdrovert, patron of the show, says Cliff Booth, Roy McBride from Ad Astra. What do you think of that one? We haven't
okay.
mentioned that one yet tonight.
Yeah, I have issues with Ad Astra as a film. I do think he's good in it, but in terms of his subtler performances, it's one of my least favorite ones.
Hmm. He also, Jason also says War Daddy from Fury. Were you a fan of Fury, the war film?
I really loved Fury when I saw
It's
that
a good
in
one.
theaters. I thought it was very underrated. I have not seen it since it came out,
Yeah,
so
neither have I, but I remember he was really good in that.
he
Yeah,
was
for
good in
sure.
it. Yeah.
It was a great cast. My wife commented, which doesn't always happen, but she's a Brad Pitt fan. But she just shared a gift from Benjamin Button. And
Okay.
Surprisingly, she shared a gif of him as the old man, though, which is kind of weird. I thought she would have done the buff younger version, but that's fine. Sure.
I think that
uh,
like everyone who was like, I don't know, old enough to like make memories around that time
yeah,
remembers like the moment in the trailer for that movie when Kate
yeah,
Blanchett is like, "You are so young," and his like golden 18-year-old self steps into the light, and it's just like,
yep, yep, yep. Thelma and Louise all over again. Yep.
yeah,
Let's see. Travis Crawford, friend of the show, says Snatch, Seven, Ocean's 11, and Meet Joe Black. So there's a couple there that we haven't mentioned.
Snatch,
Yeah, Snatch is a good one.
Snatch, yeah, that's yeah,
we just I haven't seen that one in a while, but I did kind of think of he's it's kind of like 12 Monkeys where it's really really different like for him.
yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, I like 12 Monkeys as a movie more than I like Snatch.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like influences how I think of the performances a little bit. But Snatch it is kind of a brilliant performance.
Oh yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And we got Christiani, patron of the show. He says Interview with the Vampire. We haven't mentioned that one yet. Did you like him in that with Tom Cruise and Kirsten Dunst?
No.
He was okay in it, I know, I mean.
I think that it would have been a lot more interesting if the two of them had switched roles.
Him and Cruise, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can see that. It's a weird it's a I don't know, it's a tough one to kind of like I
I
feel
just think
like
that like
people love it that like read the books and stuff, but
yeah. And I
very
always
it's
feel
a
like
very strange thing.
I've watched it a couple times over the years and just like both times he just has a nothing of a character to
Oh,
play.
wow, wow. Have to give it a
And
rewatch and check that out then.
I just think that there's not like the vampire makeup kind of saps a lot of his natural charisma.
Mhm,
So he can't really rely on that to make
mhm,
the character seem more interesting.
mhm.
Um, and it's a very I thought the character is very underwritten, especially compared to Tom Cruise and what
Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst is doing.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
Daniel Hendo Henderson's got 7, Fight Club, and Snatch. Let's see. Brett Parker, patron of the show, says Fight Club, Snatch, and Glorious Bastards, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and 7. So great list there. Drew Hallam says 7, and Glorious Bastards, and 12 Monkeys. And then we'll end on patron David Powell. He says Snatch, Burn After Reading. There you go. 12 Monkeys,
Nice.
Fight Club, True Romance. There I go. And
Yeah.
an honorable mention to his cameo in Friends. I love that.
I love him in that episode of
I
Friends.
do
I
too.
think he's hysterical.
I do too. Dating Jennifer
The
Aniston at the
I
time. It was
hate
perfect.
Rachel Green Club.
So good. It was like you said, perfect casting.
Yeah.
I mean, who else are you going to do for that? You know, it was great. I was just so happy that he did it. So, all right. So there
Mhm.
we go. There was our top 5 and then some. Brad Pitt performances. Mr. Dan Bayer, hopefully you come back in the future. We can do Leonardo DiCaprio. We can do Brad Pitt
Yeah.
movies. Literally anything you want, man. I'm a big fan of yours, and I love everything you do online. Why don't you just tell the folks where they can find you on social media, look you up, buddy?
Well, thanks, man. I am very happy to be here and would love to come on again whenever you want to have me.
Sure, man.
Y'all.
Even I got to talk to Nicole because I don't know. Did she put you up to cheating? Even though you cheated a
No,
little bit,
no,
I'm gonna I'm gonna have you on, but I got to talk to her. I don't know if she's telling guests now
she
to do this.
she did not put me up to it at all.
I'm just kidding, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
We did not plan that.
Where can they find you online, buddy? Sorry.
You can find me on Twitter at Dance and Dan on Film, on Letterboxd, and post for when Twitter goes down at Dance and Dan. And you can find my writing and podcasting at Next Best Picture and also at Awards Watch.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for being here. I know you're busy during award season, and hopefully you tune into the Golden Peas over there because I'm going to be doing my own
Oh
award show
yeah.
the day after the Oscars. So,
Oh, I have already voted for the fan awards. Have you all?
ooh, nice. That makes me happy. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it shakes out. But I appreciate you contributing, and thanks so much for being on this episode, man. It means a lot.
Of course, you're welcome. My pleasure.
All right, guys, we will see you next week. I'll be back with another guest, another top five. You guys know the deal. Until then, everybody take care. All right, Dan, just